soles of the feet together. We push them out because the further our feet are to a degree, the more influence we're going to have along the back of the spine. And that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to gently decompress here. So coming forward in a relaxed way, you could put props under your forehead, forearms. You could put them under your knees, so like blocks. And just a gentle, and I really want to emphasize that, just a gentle stretch along the back of the spine. That's all we're looking for here. And we'll be here for 5 minutes, which will really give the posture time to get into those joints, really juicy. Okay, so let's come up and I'll give you 3 choices of what to do next. If you have really tight hamstrings, you might just repeat this. Maybe you move your feet out to a different position to get a slightly different effect in your back. The different position of the feet will often correlate with different emphasis in different parts of your back, so you can experiment with that. Different intensities. You can also use the props in the same way. Sometimes putting your forehead on a block will change where you feel this stress. Next choice, very simply, legs straight, coming forward, caterpillar. And what this does is it pulls up the slack in the hamstrings and just gives us a slightly, usually a deeper rounding of the back, which is a little more aggressive decompression in the spine there. Final choice is to come onto your back and do the snail pose. I'm not going to go into detail about snail today, so if you know how to do it and you want to do it, you know how to do it safely, go right ahead. If not, I recommend one of these 2 choices here. Now you may occasionally see me sort of rolling my head and neck around. Reason I'm doing that is I can actually feel lines of tension, lines of energy in my back, and I will activate and stress different lines by moving my head and sometimes torso around a little bit. So what I'm trying to do is catch one of those lines of tension and hold that as I breathe so that that tension can dissolve. And this is a very effective way of doing that. I've had kind of trouble with my neck and shoulders over the last few, probably months, couple of months, weeks, months. And a lot of that just comes from sitting. I've been sitting way more over the winter than I have in years, and it's kind of taking its toll on me. So I'm trying to use my yin to rehabilitate my body to get back to feeling pain-free, because I've got all kinds of funky stuff going on in my neck. So I'm doing things like PT, massage, and yin yoga, as well as trying to get more active. So I'm trying to get out and start hiking, which I think is one of the best things for my body. Doing that on a regular basis just seems to really help. But hiking takes a lot of time. It's not a quick thing. It's not always easy. And when I say hiking, I mean like on a trail. Walking is good, but walking on a flat surface, a hard surface, not nearly as good as walking over terrain that is uneven, walking on inclines and walking down a hill, walking, on uneven surfaces. That affects your body in ways that I don't think we can even calculate. So as much as I'm a proponent for yoga, by all means, do your yoga. Walking outside in nature is also, I think, just vital and primary for human health. So again, when I'm feeling these sorts of things and the yoga isn't necessarily getting to it, I look toward that. Hiking oftentimes will put my body right if I can do enough of it. But again, why don't I? Like everyone else, I'm busy. I've only have so many hours in the day. So as this persists, I tend to get more aggressive. So I'm going to start carving out more time to do that, saying no to, social obligations, or even cutting back on work if I need to, because where I try and stay is in a basically, relatively pain-free state. I don't want to just live with pain. I don't want to take painkillers because that's just masking a problem. What I want to do is try and find the root of the problem, and you could say solve it, get rid of that problem. Because especially at my age, I'm approaching 50 now, one problem can cascade into another problem. So our bodies are holistic. And one system is supported by another system, and on and on and on. So if I start to just allow more and more pain in my body, it's probably going to prevent me from moving or doing certain activities because they're painful. Then that lack of movement begins to cascade, and because movement, exercise is super important for health. So start getting reluctant to move, start getting reluctant to do certain things, then that starts to lead to other systems breaking down or shutting down or becoming less active. So I'm just sharing with you my process and what I'm going through. So that's why I do that kind of like head tilt. That's what I'm looking for, is releasing those lines of energy. Okay, let's go ahead and come on back onto our back. We'll just relax. So I share that because I think that's something you should explore in your own practice if that's something that you feel. Okay, so can bring our legs in, give them a little squeeze, shake it out. Definitely feeling that in my back, not in a bad way, but definitely means, from my perspective, that there's a bit of weakness back there. Something isn't quite right. Okay, we'll do the banana next. So moving your hips over to the right side of your mat. Not essential, but helpful if you want to stay on your mat. Taking the left leg to the left, crossing the right ankle over. And again, don't do this. I see it almost in every class I teach, so I can't see you at home. Some of you might be doing that. Keep your hip down, okay? It doesn't have to touch the ground, but this isn't a side stretch. This is how a lot of people sleep. So you're not stretching your side. No one sleeps in a position where they're aggressively stretching their body, okay? So that's not the point of the pose. Okay, we reach up, grab that right wrist with the left hand, and we pull it over, and you can scoot your head and shoulders over to the left. So getting a nice deep stretch along your right waist and ribs there. This is probably not a bad time for me to talk about something I don't think we've spoken about in a while, which is nerve impingement. And the reason I bring it up is I had a young woman yesterday who mentioned it in class. After class, she mentioned she was feeling some nerve impingement. So what is nerve impingement? Nerve impingement is when the nerves that come out of your spine and run into your arms and legs get pinched in some way. And, this is something that can happen pretty easily. We don't tend to hold our body in, one maybe awkward position for 5 minutes usually. So this may be something you haven't really experienced much in the past, but it's not unusual. It doesn't mean you have some kind of condition. It just happens when, say, maybe my arm bone, as I lift my arm bone up, it might press on my nerve, and what happens is kind of like a tingling sensation in the fingertips. Some people describe it as kind of like a numbness, or some people think their limbs are going to sleep, but there's a huge difference between nerve impingement and your limb going to sleep, and I'm going to try and explain that to you now so you know the difference. And this is the kind of thing that you want to communicate to me. So again, when I say at the beginning of or end of class, does anyone have any questions? That's really what I'm talking about is, oh, I feel this weird tingling in my toes when we do this pose, or this hurts, or anything like that. Those are things that you definitely want to address. So this young lady did exactly what I would recommend. She came and mentioned that to me, and then I was able to kind of explain to her what she needs to look out for. So nerve impingement, it's not something you want. So it's not like a fire drill. You don't have to panic. It's not like you're going to hurt yourself immediately. But it's also not something we want to encourage. It's not something we want in our practice if we can avoid it. So if you determine you're impinging a nerve, just find a different position. So like, let's say if I were impinging the nerve in my right arm in this position, like I was feeling that tingling numbness in my fingers, I would just maybe bring the arm over here, or I might put it there, or might put it down, something like that. And that is something that has happened to me, by the way, in this posture. It's not today, and for whatever reason, that's how it is with me. Some days I get the nerve impingement, and then other days I don't. And this goes back to my point that I've mentioned in the past, which is our bodies are more like a stream than they are like a rock, right? So we often will think, oh, I get a nerve impingement if I do XYZ. Well, maybe if you pay attention, you'll find some days you do and some days you don't. Why? Because the body is actually different. My body is not the same body that when I would do this and feel the impingement. Okay, so the body is fluid. It's changing all the time. Subtly, when you guys see me on the screen, you don't think, who's that? It's a different person than our yoga teacher from last time. Right? So again, the changes might be subtle, they might be small, but the body is changing. It's changing. And so even from one day to the next, or even within one day. I know many people who, when I do teacher trainings and I'm there for like a week and we practice several times a day, sometimes the same posture, you can't do it in the morning and you can in the evening, and vice versa. There'll be other poses that you could do in the morning and that you find you can't do in the evening. So this, when you have that experience, it really kind of shows you how dynamic the body actually is. All right, let's take it over to the other side. So this is banana pose. Now, things like which leg you cross over which, or exactly how you position your arms, again, these things are variable. So don't be afraid to change them. Again, if I need to drop that arm or change the position of this arm, or this arm for that matter, to avoid an impingement, then I will. That doesn't make the pose wrong. As long as I feel that stretch and I feel safe, the pose is working how it's supposed to. So today I've got plenty of tension in my sides. I've not done too much side stretching, at least not this particular posture in a little while. I have been doing yin much more, again, as I'm trying to heal my body. Yin is kind of my go-to for healing. The flow practices, those are really great for sort of like maintenance, keeping the body really vital, keeping everything pumping and moving. But when I'm injured, when there's something that's not really right, I usually find that yin, I get more bang for my buck. Again, if I had all day to just do yoga and heal, then Sure, you know, I can mix it up more, but like you, I think, my day really isn't that different. You might think that, oh, you know, Doug teaches yoga, so, you know, he doesn't work a 8-hour workday or whatever it is. Doesn't matter. I've got just, you know, appointment after appointment, places I need to be. I'm constantly driving places, meeting with people more and more online, planning things, writing things. One of the things about my job is a lot of times I have to do work before I work. So, nice thing about having a job like probably most of you have there at Brightfire is you can show up for work, and then when you're done with work, you're done, and you don't have to do anything to do your work. But as a yoga teacher, sometimes at least, you have to do a lot of promotion, you have to do a lot of paperwork. Right now, I'm in the process of, I recently got certified to do a type of what's called inquiry with people, which is a type of spiritual work to help people heal things like trauma and repressed emotions and chronic pain and just even any kind of suffering. Like if there's just something that's bothering you, I can take you through it's almost like a guided meditation. Some people experience it as a guided meditation. Other people experience it as, you know, almost like a counseling session or something like that. It's not counseling, but depending on your point of reference, it might feel like a guided meditation. It might feel like a coaching or counseling session, something like that. Anyway, I recently got certified to do this professionally, and I have to fill out a lot of paperwork, and it's just taking me forever, and it's sucking up a ton of my time. So, you know, these are examples of things that are challenges for me, that in order for me to do that work, I first have to jump through all of these hoops. And then even once I've jumped through those hoops, I have to find clients who are interested in doing that. So I may have to make educational and promotional videos explaining the nature of what I'm doing, because most people have never heard of this. So that's just a little insight or a little example into my life. It might seem like, oh, a yoga class is an hour and Doug teaches yoga. So, you know, even if he teaches 4 classes in one day, he's got plenty of time to do other things. But unfortunately, that's just not necessarily the case. So let's get back to nerve impingement. The way you can tell the difference between an impingement and your limb going to sleep is you might feel tingling in both cases. But usually when a limb goes to sleep, you lose sensation in the limb. It doesn't tingle. When you come out of the position, you get pins and needles. Okay, that's how you know. It goes numb, it doesn't tingle, it kind of loses all sensation. And then when you come out, you get pins and needles. With an impingement, while you're in the position, you begin to feel pins and needles. You don't lose sensation, all sensation. You get a tingling feeling while you're in it. And then when you come out, you get almost immediate relief. You don't get the pins and needles sensation. So I hope that makes sense. So I don't talk about that in every class because it honestly doesn't come up too often. But every now and then I like to repeat these things and just, you know, tell you so that you know, and just in case that is coming up for you or someone who watches this later. Again, it's not the end of the world, but it is unpleasant. And it's not something you want to encourage. You don't really want to impinge your nerves. It's not great for them for you to do that. If you did it long enough, you could damage the nerve, but usually in yin, we're not holding it long enough to damage the nerves. All right, let's go ahead and pull those legs in, shake it out a little bit. Definitely not feeling this as much in my back, which, you know, maybe is to be expected. All right, let's go ahead and hinge up. And then we'll go ahead and do a little counter stretching with the bear pose. So good time to check in. How's the spine and back feeling? The hips, the shoulders, the head and neck. Again, ideally, we just want to feel pain-free. Like I can move, and until I go beyond my natural range of motion, I don't experience a lot of pain. And that pain, the onset of that pain is gradual, not sudden. All right, let's tuck the toes. We'll pedal back and forth. You know, so again, achiness, things like that from working out, not a bad thing, right? That's to be expected. And in a sense, we want to feel that from time to time. A little bit of soreness, a little bit of achiness. Okay, let's go ahead and come forward onto the belly. And we prop ourselves up on the elbows. That is Sphinx. So we're doing a back bend here. Okay, pretty typical back bend. Now you can stay here as long as you feel the gentle compression in your back. Today I'm not really feeling it, which is not a bad, that's probably a good thing. When my back was a little more agitated or injured, this would be plenty for me. I would really feel it. So we're going to go into seal. And the variations for both are the same. Head held up, drop forward, drop back, shoulders depressed or relaxed, legs together or apart. Okay, and again, just looking for a little bit of compression in the back there. What we're trying to do, and I've talked quite a bit about this recently. Actually, if you guys want to learn more, I just posted a video of this on my Patreon page. So I can't like post other people's videos on my YouTube channel, but I can post other people's videos on my Patreon. So that's what I've done, just sharing information. I'm not a scientist. Again, I'm not an author. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm none of these things. I'm just a yoga teacher who's very interested in health and healing and the body. So hormesis, or hormetic stress, is where we get, you could say we get out of our comfort zone enough to stimulate the body to get stronger and healthier, okay? And so that's exactly what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to take my back just up to the point where it is relatively easy and safe for it to move. And I am not trying to increase my back bend, okay? I think at this point, having done yoga for so long, my back bend's not going to get a whole lot deeper. You never know. Who knows? You know, maybe I discover something one day and something releases and all of a sudden I have a super deep back bend. I highly, highly, highly doubt it. So I think, you know, this is about all I'm ever going to get. So why do it? And the reason I do it is because this is creating hormetic stress. This is helping to keep my body functioning optimally. That's what I want. And if it is not functioning optimally, which in honesty it's not. Again, I wouldn't feel these pains and pangs and things in my body if it were. So if it's not functioning optimally, what I'm trying to do is stimulate it to heal. Now, whether or not I'll be able to do that or not, I honestly don't know. Some of you saw the interview, I think, that I posted with Brandy, who's my physical therapist. She's a student of mine, and she used to be a chemistry teacher, and then she decided to go back to school and study physical therapy, so now she's a doctor of physical therapy. She knows a ton about the body and different things that can happen in terms of, pain in your body, musculoskeletal pain, things like that. She can test for various things, tell you if there's damage. And I don't mean tests with scans, like she'll just move your body around and see, if you're feeling pain in certain positions or not. But anyway, she's been telling me, like as she works with my body, she's like, well, you may be developing arthritis here. And she's like, it's kind of unavoidable. And I take that with a grain of salt. I'm not saying Brandy doesn't know what she's talking about. So, the scientific community, they study just average people. And your average person actually doesn't do yoga. They also eat, by many standards, a relatively poor diet. Our average American diet is not a particularly nutritious or healthy diet. That's just a fact. So I have nothing against America or Americans, or I love the same foods that most people do, right? Hamburger and fries, I love it. I want to eat that all the time. Is that the best thing for me? Absolutely not. So again, as we learn more and more about the stuff, we just have to say, okay, as we age, we begin to show the effects of a life of maybe not living quite right, and it begins to show up. Is that avoidable? Maybe. So I don't know. It's an open-ended question for me. But according to Brandy, some of this stuff may be unavoidable. Some arthritis, some pain, some of these things just may be part of the aging process. No matter how much yoga you do, no matter how well you eat, no matter how much exercise, it may just come with the territory. I don't know. It's an open-ended question for me. Let's come on down. I'm just interested in, can I possibly avoid that, right? I had a student at a studio, and he was in his, I think he was in his 60s or 70s. And I think I shared this before, he just said that, his level of pain tolerance has, shot up and gone through the roof over the years. Because he was like, if I was in my 40s and I felt the level of pain that I feel right now, I would have thought something was really wrong. But now I'm just used to it. So again, is that inevitable? I don't know. I really don't. It's interesting because, in our culture, a lot of times we take the elderly and we just kind of push them off to the side. It's like we don't want to admit or see that might happen to us someday. So we don't necessarily ask our grandparents, like, oh, when did that pain start? And has it ever gone away? Have you ever tried to make it go away? Anything like this. It's just like we push them off to the side and pretend like they don't exist and that they're fine. All right, let's do one more back bend. We press back to kneeling. You can sit on your heels. You can sit on a block. You can sit between your heels. Your toes can point back or out to the sides. Okay. You can pad your heels and feet, or you can pad your feet and ankles. Your knees can be together or apart. And hopefully you can experiment with that and find something that feels safe for your ankles and your knees. That's the first step. These areas do not feel like they are being compromised by what we're asking them to do. Once you're there, see if you feel a stretch in the front of your thighs. And if you do, you're going to stay there. I'm just going to stretch these quads. Okay? From there, if you want to go a little bit further, if you don't feel the stretch here, you begin lowering back, elbows, bolster, crown of your head, or all the way back onto your back. And this is the saddle pose. Very therapeutic, but also could be hazardous, right? If you're not doing it properly, you could mess up your ankles or your knees. The ankles and the knees are, generally speaking, statistically speaking, these are areas that get injured most often when exercising. So remember, yoga, the type of yoga we're doing, is a form of exercise. So it's both yoga and it's a kind of exercise. So anytime we're exercising, we need to be very mindful of these areas, okay? So again, for me, it's an interesting question. And there's a lot of people asking this question right now. There's a lot of science and research being done. You know, some people think that we may be near the end of where the kind of the aging that we have experienced up to this point, where, you know, people, they reach their 40s and then they start just declining, and then, you know, they die sometime in their 70s or 80s, you know, your average person. And in that, you know, they just get more and more wrinkled and shorter, and they're in more and more pain, and different things start shutting down. There are some people who are involved in this research who believe that we may be on the precipice of being able to reverse that or to stop that. I don't necessarily think that means that, again, you know, they're going to figure out how to make people live forever. I don't think they've been able to do that, but with at least some rodents, they've been able to sort of reverse their age. I think they still eventually die, but aging is not the same thing as dying, right? A young person can die without aging, without, you know, getting old, without having all these problems and pains in their body. So it's an interesting question. Do the natural aging process, is that what we consider the natural aging process, is that unavoidable? Or is that maybe the result of bad habits? And can we avoid a lot of the problems that we consider normal? Like, again, my physical therapist saying it's normal to have arthritis in your joints, a little bit of arthritis in your joints as you age. It's normal to lose your flexibility, all those kinds of things. Or it's even unavoidable, maybe. Is that true? Or have we just not applied the right type of hormetic stress to coax the body to maintain its flexibility, to keep it pain-free? Again, I don't have an answer for you. I'm, you know, doing the experiment myself. I'm going through the process myself. It was funny, up until about when I was 45, you know, people would talk about age, and, you know, people would say, oh, you're getting so old, you're this age or that age. And it really didn't mean anything to me, because I didn't feel any different. In fact, I felt better. The longer I had done yoga and the more I learned about it, just the better and better I felt, generally speaking. So I was kind of like, whatever, this aging thing is ridiculous. And I felt like maybe that would just continue forever. And then around my mid-40s, the last few years really, I started noticing more and more certain things, you know, were kind of creeping in. Now, for many people, some people are born with these things. So like, one of the things is my eyesight has gotten a little bit worse. Well, you know, lots of people are born having to wear glasses and things like that. I've also started having some ringing in my ears. Again, some people who are much younger than me have those conditions. And then again, the pain that, you know, isn't easy to just, doesn't just sort of disappear on its own. It seems to linger. All right, let's go ahead and come on out of this one. Take your time. Okay, let's give those legs a squeeze. We'll shake it out. And let's finish with a twist. So, right over left, down to the left, that's the twisted roots. Pretty standard twist for us. Be sure to play around with arm, head, neck, leg position to maximize that for your benefit. I don't know if you can hear my spine cracking. It's pretty loud. So again, to me, it's actually kind of interesting. I know I don't mean for this to sound depressing or, whatever. Like I said, a lot of people, these conditions that I'm experiencing, these are things that a lot of people experience at a much younger age than me, or some people are born with some of these conditions. So I'm not complaining or saying like I'm a decrepit, elderly person. What I am saying is it's interesting to me because it's the first signs of, really aging that's shown up for me that have been significant or been something that's like, oh yeah, maybe that's what they're talking about when they talk about aging. Because up to about 45, it's like, so what? People talk about laugh lines or gray hairs. I mean, like, who cares? Whatever. I mean, it's not that big a deal. If you take care of yourself, even, slightly, I think most of those things are going to be pretty minimal. But, around 45, mid 40s, that's often where it starts to show up, and that's where it started showing up for me. So again, I'm kind of seeing it as like a game, a challenge, if you will, an interesting question. Are there things that I can do to reverse that damage or stop it? So if these are signs of something that's going to, the beginning of a process that's, degeneration. So you're seeing, okay, things are maybe going to just get worse and worse. Can I prevent that from happening? And again, the one to me that's maybe the most interesting is just sort of the aches and pains in the body. And I'm happy to report so far that it seems like I've been able to handle or deal with individual pains. But right now it seems like it's kind of like whack-a-mole or something, or, plugging a dam with your fingers. Like every time I seem to deal with one thing, it seems like pain will show up someplace else. Now that could mean that the pains were related, or it could just be, again, part of the age I'm at, that maybe that's just unavoidable, that I'm going to begin to experience pains and things like that. But another thing I'm starting to look at is I think I've always eaten, relatively healthy, but like I said earlier, burger and fries. I haven't eaten at McDonald's in I don't know how long. Fast food, I have not really enjoyed for a very, very long time. And that's why I stopped eating it. It just didn't sit right with me anymore. But I would still eat burger and fries or whatever. And I could still enjoy that. And I still do. But I'm starting to become more and more aware of the effect of what we eat on the way our genes express themselves, and the effect of how our genes express themselves on our aging. So I'm starting to take a long, hard look at how I'm eating and seeing if that's something that I can maybe change. Because I'm already doing yoga, I'm already doing a lot of things, meditating, relaxation techniques, a lot of things that these people that are doing this research that they recommend, already doing a lot of that. So one department or one area where I can improve. And I'm not saying I do any of those things perfectly, by the way. So could I do more yoga? Absolutely. Could I spend more time on relaxation? Absolutely. But like I said earlier, I still have a job. It might be teaching yoga, but I still have limits on the time I can spend on self-care. All right, let's go ahead and switch sides here. So for me, I think one of the areas where I could get the most impact, most bang for my buck, might be in diet and nutrition, those areas. So that's an area I'm starting to play around with and explore. And again, that's really how I kind of do things. It kind of is like a game. It's, from my perspective, we're all going to die. We're all going to age. So there is no sense in trying to resist that and getting upset as that occurs, right? So when it's my time to die, I hope that I embrace that and I can enjoy that experience too, if you will. And aging, same thing. It's interesting for me again. When I was younger and I would read about healing and techniques for healing and things about meditation for healing or whatever, it'd be fascinating to me, but I had nothing to heal. I was healthy. I didn't really have conditions to look at or work on. Now I do have a few that I can play with. And it's, again, fascinating and kind of fun and interesting to me. Can I reverse those? Can I turn those around? What could I do? What can I change? And so, again, for me, one of the areas I think I can be the most impactful is probably with my diet, which I'm starting to look at. Now, some of that just comes down to also lifestyle and scheduling. So a few things are hopefully going to shift in my schedule. Again, I said I'm starting to do this one-on-one work, and that might allow me to work a little more from home, which one of the advantages of working from home is that then I can maybe prepare more meals at home. And I know, this concept of eating healthy, everyone has a different idea of what that means, but a lot of what I'm learning is it's almost impossible to eat out and truly eat healthy in the way that I'm starting to explore. So yes, you can go out and get a salad, but you don't necessarily know what's in the dressing. If you eat any grains or like breads or anything, you don't really know what's in the bread. Anything that's processed, you really don't know what's in it. You also don't know what seasonings, even if they put seasoning on something, you don't even really know what's in that seasoning, right? So a lot of places you go, unfortunately, in our food supply, at least in the US, we add all kinds of stuff to everything. And unfortunately for us, a lot of this stuff is turning out to be a lot of times kind of the problem. So again, you can eat really unhealthy, which a lot of people do. You can eat kind of average, and you can even try and eat healthy, right? But it's almost to the point where in our culture right now, the types of oils that are used, the types of seasonings that are used, the types of fillers that are in food, the types of things that are used to prevent food from going bad or stale, the types of things that are used to make food look good, all of these things are really not good for us. So, the point I'm at is the only way I'm really going to be able to control my diet and eat the way that I want to is basically to eat at home. Now, that doesn't mean I'm never going to go out. Again, I'm just kind of playing with this. But if I want to experiment with this, I'm definitely going to need to probably cook a lot more at home, cook my own food, and then I know exactly what is in it, right? I'm cooking whole foods from scratch, so not buying some pre-made thing. But even if you do that, you can read the ingredients, and if you know what you're looking for. But that's a lot of what I've learned over the last probably year or so, is a lot of these things, it's not even like, is chicken or beef better? It's not even like that kind of question. It's like, how is the beef raised? What are they feeding the beef? And then again, if you're buying something that's been processed, what oils are they using? What types of fillers are in there? Are they adding sugar to create flavor? All these kinds of things. These things matter. All right, let's unwind there. And just relax for a moment. So, I'm not telling you any of this so that you follow it's not advice. I'm just sharing my journey with you, to be completely honest. And my intention in sharing is that it may be beneficial for you. So if you're, young, healthy, happy, you enjoy eating out, you enjoy McDonald's, don't stop, continue. Because my thing is always just about, really being happy and content. So if that makes you happy and content, if you are, then more power to you. Continue on. This isn't a thing of, oh, you should be doing this or you should be doing that or you need to do this to be healthy or young or whatever. Do what makes you happy, truly. But it's when we find that, oh, I need antidepressants or, oh, my hip always hurts or whatever it is, then we want to start looking at questioning things and looking at things. Because there's a lot of unanswered questions that medicine and science can't answer right now. Cancer, dementia, diabetes, depression, anxiety, cancer. I don't know if I mentioned cancer already. So many conditions are going through the roof. And if we really knew what was going on, then that wouldn't be happening, right? I mean, we wouldn't be... If science and medicine really had a handle on things, then we would just be getting healthier and healthier and disease would be going down and down. It's not what we see happening. So our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health are by many measures in decline and continue to decline. And so we really have to question the kind of status quo narrative. Like when I go to my doctor, and I'm not telling you to ignore your doctor, but when you go to your doctor and they say XYZ, again, where did they get their information from? Where is this coming from? So again, if our doctors and scientists had the answers, then we shouldn't be seeing what we're seeing. All right, let's bring our legs in, shake it out. So basically the thrust of my point is we need to take responsibility for our own health and well-being. And we shouldn't be afraid to question what anyone says, question what I say. But it really is up to you as an individual. You can't rely on the FDA or your doctor or the CDC, or you really have to figure out what works for you to make you happy and healthy. All right, let's rest, and we'll set a timer for 6 minutes and just allow everything to balance.